Okay, here we are at the Great Rock and Roll, Great Southern Freeseum Studio Book and Record Collection. Archive and Music Historical by Paneaglesong, with the Blues Brothers here on attendance, ghost busting the great rockers of all time. And here we going to go into the book collection section. Great reads of the 60s, 70s rock and roll, USA, England, and these books are some of the best reads that you're going to find, maybe the best reads. Okay, you got a group over here as well. Really excellent, and historical records. I should put out the videos, but I'm going to go through the books real quickly and wonderfully. And my favorite, maybe one of the best I've got here, is this book about Jimi Hendrix called Jimi Hendrix and the Rock and Roll Revolution, Crosstown Traffic, by Charles Shaar Murray. This is an excellent read, covering the entire history and the music development of all the genres as expressed by Jimi Hendrix, the great rock and roll guitarist. Tremendous must read. Love it. And another one of another kind, the Catch a Fire Life of Bob Marley. Another martyr, lost rock legend in reggae, roots, and rhythm and blues. That's the 80s. And then the one that came in the 90s, well, Kurt Cobain, Heavier Than Heaven, a biography by Charles Cross. One of the most moving and revealing books ever written about a rock star. Okay. And I'm going to move right ahead to another excellent read, maybe the best one of its kind about the Beatles, the definitive biography called Shout, The Beatles and Their Generation, by Phil Norman. Next door, I have the Like a Rolling Stone, Bob Dylan at the Crossroads, by Greil Marcus. There are other Dylan books, of course. However, recommendation. There it is. And of course, the folk rock blues songwriter leadership of the generation. He would not perhaps want to be included in that kind of talk or discussed as a legend of any kind. Nonetheless, his material speaks for itself. And right next to him is the Inside Out Personal History of Pink Floyd by Nick Mason, one of the members of the band. This is an excellent read, better than the more commercial big compilations that Pink Floyd has put out, and other materials, I would say. All right. Next to that, we're going to go with Brian Wilson, Catch a Wave, Rise, Fall, and Redemption of the Beach Boys' Brian Wilson by Peter Ames Carlin. Yep, first-rate biography. Okay, you find out the whole story there and why Brian went, we'll call it solo, and left the entire surfing community, in a way, to tell you the truth. Rocked himself right away out of it, and probably with good reason. Nonetheless, these stories are very interesting, what happened to the generations. And next to him is another one, Midnight Rider, the story of the Allman Brothers Band. Greg Allman and his brother Dwayne, whom I actually know in reincarnation. He lives about 10 miles away from me. He's got a load of guitars at his house. He's somewhat autistic, but that's what happens, you know, is that all the rockers and all these people, more than likely, they do have to come back. They make another return trip, and that is the issue with humanity at some level, that most of us are not aware that we're doing this, and even if we are, it's still, where are we going to put ourselves and where are we going to be? But these books give a definitive share of what happens to the people and how they live their lives. No good or bad, no right, wrong, evil, doing, good doers, legends, or any of that stuff. Nonetheless, they were able to make their own history, and it was, for many of us, beautiful to watch. Next is the Fleetwood Mac. It's a book about the first 30 years, covers all of the generations of Fleetwood Mac, from the Peter Green to the Bob Welch to the Lindsey Buckingham additions to the rhythm section of Fleetwood and McVie. And of course this one on the cover with Stevie Nicks and Christine McVie, covering the 75 and onwards. Interesting, important rock history. And I'll move over here to this whole group. I'll pause just for a minute. Second, and now. A big part of what happened in rock history was drug, sex, and rock and roll, and politics, and freedom, expressions, dim-witted or otherwise, and some profound, some self-indulgent, but also the psychedelic drug history, relations. I should include a note of what happened at Laurel Canyon in Los Angeles, and the musician communities that were developed and or failed. However, all of it is A Long Strange Trip, which is the title of the Inside History of the Grateful Dead by Dennis McNally. And that's a fine book on this group, and Jerry Garcia led Grateful Dead experiencing. And where did that come from? Well, I'm going to jump over here to the Tom Wolfe biography, so-called, of the electric KOOL AID ACID test, about the psychedelic generation. And this is a tremendous book, classic, and highly recommended if anyone wants to really know about this stuff. Next to that is a book called True Hallucinations by Terence McKenna, being an account of the author's extraordinary adventures in the Devil's Paradise with the mushrooms, psychedelia, peyote, and all other forms of real hallucinations, which can be dreams and out-of-body or related awareness experiences that we all have and are very important to recognize as dreamscapes of reality, in that there actually are real experiences. The dream state is. Nonetheless, this kind of reading is not to raise hallucinogens to a higher cause, but just to the relevance of such and to understand what happened. Next to him, I'm going to go over the David Crosby and the autobiography of Long Time Gone with Carl Gottlieb. And this just speaks for itself about his personal experience with Crosby, Stills and Nash and his own and the Byrds and the other solo works that he followed with. Okay, also going to The Social History of Rock and Roll by Paul Friedlander. And that will give you the whole picture, all the different music. And I related that with this book, the Billboard Book of Top 40 Hits, which of its kind does provide that information of what was in and what was out, what worked and what got sold, and how we all got sold out, etc., etc. Next to that is number one hits, also the Billboard Book of, and just as an informational Bible, so to speak. And I'm going to jump right over to the Beatles here, finish up this group, because who would we be in this era without the lives of John Lennon, written by Albert Goldman, and naturally this lives of this individual with the Beatles, Plastic Ono Band, Yoko Ono, the entire history of the 60s, and the dramatic place that the Beatles and this John Lennon played in it. That's it. Got this Beatles anthology, which comes from the 1990 time when they released the videos, 9 video series, and this covered their history and experience and black and white to color. And this book is thick with hard to read and multifaceted aspects of the Beatles experience. Now I'm going to add 2 more books, which I personally enjoyed. This Hotel California, about the Laurel Canyon groups, and the True Life Adventures, Joni Mitchell, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Jackson Browne, Linda Ronstadt, the Eagles, and David Geffen, which is another important aspect. The producers, good and bad, mostly taking money more than given, and nonetheless they help provide some of the vehicle for these artists to get out, which is very important at the time, and there it is. I'm also going to go with one more Beatles biography, the authorized biography by Hunter Davies. Some of these books may not be that easy to find. Nonetheless, all of them well worth reading. And just to finish with this one, the Book of Rock from the 1950s to today. Of course, these are more the commercial historicals that are being put out. Still, some of them cover the area and will really let general people, let's say the good people, know about what happened and what the music was. I think that 1970 was the greatest year of all of it. All the artists were making music. All the great ones are still alive. Elvis, Frank Sinatra, and the rest. And the fact is that the artists of that era, the 60s, were all making solo records in 1970, 71, and 69 was Woodstock, the movie, and the experience, which the seminal period as well. The descendants of the blues, rock, jazz, and how it all developed into this fusion and infusion of all different styles, and came down to the modern experience that we have, which is the same kind of a fusion, but it's all now really crazied and kind of metallicized. But I think that's where this came from, and the whole history was all this fire of light and sound that people were coming to enjoy or know, especially. What for? Well, the same thing, for real freedom, real truth, beauty, love, and awareness, real awareness of what life is. Thank you all, artists, for demonstrating in whatever ways and recording for us. I'm very grateful for the entire history. This is Paneaglesong. I'm Hey Paneaglesong on YouTube. I've got about 400 songs myself written, and my style is that folk rock generally, and country blues, but not commercial. And it's a songwriting effort, instrumentals and voice guitar songs, to demonstrate the real new you that leads in sound and light experience to know the real awareness. Thank you. I'll see you later.